In a world where technology changes quickly, speed is the best thing to have. As it flies through the sky at incredible speeds, the thin line between a normal plane and one that almost disappears before anyone can see it. With their unmatched skills, these fast planes have changed the way military power works. But which of these tools can reach speeds that will blow your mind? And which country has the most of these sneaky ships? Elusive planes. Come with us as we look at the skills of some of the unnoticed planes that have changed the way wars are fought. The North Americans started with an airplane that holds the world record for the fastest human aircraft. It was used at such high speeds that it didn't use normal steering methods, like drag over fins, but rocket engines were used instead. It was able to reach heights of more than 62 miles, which was one of its world records. There are 3 records in the history of flying that this plane held when it was in use. It was the first space plane that could fly. That's more than 62 miles high, and it flew faster than 6 times the speed of sound, which is about 5,099 miles per hour. It was safe at those very fast speeds. It has a big, wedge-shaped tail. There was one problem with it though. Due to the tail, the drag was very high at slower speeds. So a B-52 Stratofortress had to lift it to a certain height and then drop it, after which it started its own engines. The rocket engine is one of the things that made the X-15 unique. The rocket engine that drove the X-15 was called an XL 99. It burned liquid oxygen and anhydrous ammonia. This engine was very strong and could give the plane the force it needed to fly very fast. The rocket engine's exhaust gases were sucked out at high speeds, creating a reaction force that moved the plane forward. The X-15's cockpit was pressurized to give the driver a safe place to work and protect them from the harsh conditions they would face while flying at high speeds and high altitudes. The plane had an ejection seat in case of an emergency, which kept the driver safe. This hypersonic plane also had a number of tools and sensors that could measure aerodynamic forces, temperatures, pressures, and other things. This information was very important for improving aerospace engineering and learning more about high-speed flying. Its groundbreaking work on high-speed flying and aerodynamics had a direct effect on how the SR-71 Blackbird was designed and built. The X-15's efficiency and data collection were very helpful in making the Blackbird, which is now one of the fastest and most famous planes in aviation history. Now let's talk about Russia's Sukhoi Su-27 Flanker. This plane has a top speed of 1,788 m and was designed to beat new American fighters like the F-15 Eagle in the air. It has a 30mm gun and 10 pylons on the outside. Long-range and short-range air-to-air rockets can both fit inside that. Because of all it has done and how famous it is, the Flanker comes in a lot of different forms, some of which are still cutting edge 43 years after their first flight. The form of this plane is like the MiG-29s, but it is much bigger. It has wings that connect to the middle of its body in the shape of a half delta, and the tips are changed so that they can hold weapons or electronics. The jet has delta wings with regular horizontal tailplanes that are tailed. It is very quick because it was the first Soviet jet to have a fly-by-wire control system. It's good at both slow speeds and steep angles, as shown by its impressive moves, like the Cobra or Pugachev's Cobra in air shows. The Su-27K or Su-33 is the naval version of the Su-27. Has canards on the front of the wings to help with lift when taking off from shorter distances. There are also some Su-30, Su-35 and U-37 types that have these fins. One thing that makes this plane stand out is that it has a Phasotron N1 radar system that can track targets while searching and find and attack targets from below. It also has an OLS-27 infrared find and track system in the front, which can see up to 100 kilometers away. There is a 30mm Grazev Shipanov GSH-31 cannon on the Su-27, and there are up to 10 hardpoints for carrying rockets and other weapons. It usually has a mix of R-73 and R-27 missiles or a 10 Alamo missiles, some of which have longer ranges and infrared tracking. The fearsome General Dynamics F-111 Aardvark is the next very fast plane on the list. This plane isn't just a fighter jet, but a combat bomber that can fly at 1,902 miles per hour. Before it was taken out of service in 1998, it had 9 hard points, 2 weapon bays, and could carry 31,526 pounds of bombs. It is possible to add a nuclear bomb, air-to-air weapons, or a machine gun that can fire 2,000 rounds. But because the Aardvark's air was so rough, the gun was rarely put on it. The Aardvark was the first commercial plane with a variable sweep wing configuration. Because of this, it was also tried for operations from a carrier. That being said, this was never finished, though there were some good tests. The McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle is a famous U.S. fighter plane that is still in use by the U.S. Air Force. It has been called one of the most successful planes ever made. It was first used in 1976, and the Air Force will keep using it after 2025. Almost 1,200 F-15s were made, and they have been sent to places like Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. These planes were made until 2019. It was first made to be an air superiority plane, but later the F-15A Strike Eagle, an air-to-ground version, was made. It can hold different kinds of Sparrows. Sidewinder, 120 AMRAM, adds bombs or fuel tanks from outside on its 11 weak spots. With its 20mm M6101 Vulcan gun, it's no wonder that this buster has won more than 100 confirmed air battles. The A and C models, which are the most basic forms of this supersonic plane, have only one seat and are mostly used to gain air superiority in battle. The B and D models can train with an extra seat and also fight. In the E model, the second seat is for a crew member who is in charge of the guns. One thing that makes the Airfighter different from other current fighter jets is that its engine nozzles don't have turkey feather covers on them. These covers were taken off because they were a nuisance and made it 3% harder for air to flow. In 1963, a very strange thing happened. An Israeli F-15D managed to land safely after losing most of one wing in a crash. What a driver! Zivi Nadi V flew the badly damaged plane by using all of its engine's power and landing at twice the regular speed. After tests, it was found that this kind of control was only possible over a very small range of speeds and wing angles. A study was done to see if it is possible to make flying control systems that can still work after being damaged. The F-15 has a multi-mission avionics system that has many tools and systems, such as an improved radar and a head-up display, an inertial guidance system, flying instruments, navigation systems, communication systems using ultra-high frequencies, and a setup for electronic warfare. It also has systems that can tell if other planes are friendly or hostile, a set of electronic defenses that can fool enemy radar and sensors, and a main computer that handles all of this data. The F-15's head-up display UD puts important flying and target data right in front of the pilot. This way, the pilot can see everything they need to see to track and fight an enemy plane without having to take their eyes off the front windshield, even when it's bright outside. This plane has high-tech radar systems that can find targets both above and below it, even when ground items are in the way. From far away to very close, and from high up to almost ground level, these radars can find and track both big and small, fast-moving things. The radar data helps the computer figure out how to point guns correctly. When fighting close up, the radar quickly finds enemy planes, and this information is shown right on the hood. The electronic warfare system on the jet warns the pilot of risks and can stop the enemy from tracking the plane automatically. Later, in the APG-63 VV2 and V3 types, the radar was changed to an active electronically scanned array version that has a very flexible radar beam to quickly change places and keep an eye on several targets at once. This better radar works with the F-15's weapons and makes missiles like the AIM-1200 AMRAM more powerful, so the pilot can hit more than one target at once. There are different air-to-air weapons that it can carry, and it also has an automated system that helps the pilot use these weapons safely and successfully. The head-up display shows information, and the engine throttles or control stick can be used to direct the weapons. The HUD instantly changes to show information for the new weapon when the pilot changes weapons. It was also on the list because the Mikoyan MiG-31 Foxhound could go 2,153 miles per hour, which is very fast. The Mikoyan Gurevich MiG-31 Foxhound is the next plane on our list. This plane used to be offered for flights by tourists. Because it had two huge engines, it could fly faster than sound at both high and low levels. One of its weapons is a 23mm gun with 260 rounds under the body. It also has 4 R-33 air-to-air heavy missiles or 6 R-37 air-to-air missiles on pylons, which can be long or medium range. IR missiles with a short range or a special air-to-air missile with a middle range for targets moving quickly. The plane has a long, thin fuselage with a nacelle that holds 2 engines, a big wing with a changeable sweep, and a unique tail with 2 fins. The force needed to reach supersonic speeds comes from the 2 powerful D-30F6 turbofan engines. When the plane is flying fast, the wings are pulled back to reduce drag and make the plane more stable. It also has high-tech sensors and avionics systems for finding and attacking targets. It has a Saslan phased array radar that can both look down and shoot down multiple targets at once, and direct the R-33 air-to-air missiles to hit them successfully. It has a number of different types of air-to-air missiles, such as the older R-33, R-40 missiles and the newer R-77 missiles. With these tools, it can be very offensive. The Bell X-2 Starbuster was an American research plane that made its first flight in 1955 and was taken out of service in 1956. It was also used as a Defender. As a continuation of the X-2 program, its main goal was to study how planes acted when they were flying faster than 1,052 miles per hour. As you can see, it didn't have any guns on board and had wings that were swept backwards, which cut down on air resistance and let it reach an amazing speed. Milburn G. Att, the pilot, made a quick turn soon after reaching this speed, though, and the plane went flying off the ground. He tried to take control of the plane again but failed, so he bailed out. Too bad that the escape shuttle's small parachute only opened, and he hit the ground too quickly. This terrible crash put an end to the Starbuster scheme. Looking at the designs, the Bell X-2 was a sleek and thin plane that was made to reach high speeds and altitudes while staying stable and easy to control. Its main design elements were a long, thin fuselage that reduced aerodynamic drag, swept back wings that made it stable at hypersonic speeds, a strong XLR-25 rocket engine that used a mix of liquid oxygen and alcohol for thrust, and a pressurized cockpit with an ejection seat to keep the pilot safe. Its goal was to reach very high speeds using its rocket engine as its main part. It was lifted into the air by a B-50 Superfortress bomber to its launch altitude. When it was let go, the XLR-25 rocket engine started firing, sending the X-2 flying forward at very high speeds. As the X-2 sped up, it broke the sound barrier and reached heights close to 126,000 feet, making records for both speed and height. During its flights, the X-2 had a number of instruments and sensors that it could use to gather information about things like temperatures, pressures, aerodynamic forces, and more. This knowledge was very important for understanding the difficulties of flying fast at high altitudes and for making progress in aerospace technology. The next plane on the list is the Mikoyan MiG-25 Foxbat from the Soviet Union. It was made during the Cold War when the US and the USSR were rivals. Because of the need for a fast, high-altitude interceptor and surveillance plane to fight off American spy planes like the Utwo, this plane was made. The MiG-25 made its first flight in 1964, which was a big moment in the history of flying. For its time, the MiG-25 was one of the fastest planes, with a top speed of Mach 2.83 thanks to its strong engines and effective aerodynamic design, allowed it to fly to heights above 80,000 feet, giving it entry to the stratosphere. Because of these qualities, the MiG-25 was a great defender that could quickly engage and destroy incoming threats. The MiG-25 was first made to be an interceptor, but it was later changed so that it could be used for reconnaissance tasks. With its high-tech cameras and sensors, it could go deep into enemy country. High speed and altitude helped the MiG-25 get past enemy defenses and gather important information. Durability and strength were also important in the design of the MiG-25. The plane was strong and able to handle the stresses of supersonic flying because it was made of stainless steel, a material that can handle the high temperatures that are created at high speeds. It has Tumansky RR-15 series engines that are stable and strong. The MiG-25's great performance was helped by the fact that it was a great example of engineering during the Cold War. It was a symbol of the race between superpowers to be the best at military power. Saddam Hussein wanted to be in charge of the whole region and build up his army, which is why Iraq sought out advanced weapons like the powerful MiG-25 Fox-Bat aircraft and maintained military and political ties with the Soviet Union. A big global arms supplier was very important to this effort. Iraq had a rough relationship with Iran that ended in the Iran-Iraq War, which made it necessary for them to buy high-tech weapons. The MiG-25 was thought to be useful during times of tension in the area, because it could fly fast and at high altitudes. As part of its larger strategic goals, the Soviet Union was ready to give Iraq the MiG-25 because it had a deep understanding of the politics in the Middle East. Iraq's close ties with the Soviet Union made it even easier for them to get these high-tech planes. The process of buying included talks about money and the transfer of technology. In the late 1970s, the first MiG-25S planes came to Iraq. This was the start of their integration into the Iraqi Air Force. During the war between Iran and Iraq, the MiG-25 was very useful. These planes were put to good use. Their high speed and altitude made it possible for them to work well in the fast-paced and complicated war zone, gathering important information amidst the chaos. This was especially true for reconnaissance missions over Iranian land. During this troubled time in the Middle East, it was clear that the MiG-25 had helped Iraq's defense. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union built this jet to shoot down American planes, along with the SR-71 and other high-speed planes. Surveillance planes that fly slowly. Because it was made to meet the SR-71, it had to go very fast, which is why its top speed in 2004 was 35 miles per hour. The Fox-Bat was not a spy plane like the Blackbird. It had 4 air-to-air missiles that made it an interceptor. It has never been able to shoot down a Blackbird, but it has done many other war tasks successfully, like in the Iran-Iraq War. From 1964 to 1984, more than 1,100 Fox-Bats were made. Today, though, only Russia, Syria, Algeria, and Turkmenistan use it, so it's not very useful. The last plane on the list is the famous Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, which has made a big mark on history. This plane has been used by both the USAF and NASA since it was first made in 1966. There were 32 Blackbirds made. All of them were used for study and spying. It also had stealth technology, but if the enemy did manage to see it, it was so fast that it could easily avoid interceptors or surface-to-air missiles that were aimed at it. The Blackbird was going so fast that the air in front of it didn't have time to leave. This caused a lot of pressure to build up, which made the plane hot. It could get as hot as 100 degrees. The metal grew bigger because it was so hot. That's why it had to be put together in parts. This meant that the plane leaked oil when it wasn't being used. Not only did people love its iconic appearance, but they also loved how fast it was. At about 2,200 miles per hour, this amazing plane could keep cruising speeds that were faster than 3 times the speed of sound. Because it went so fast, it deserves to go down in history as one of the fastest planes ever made. In addition, the plane could fly as high as 85,000 feet, or even higher, going deep into the sky. The Blackbird was a real pioneer in the field of aerial power. It set new records for speed and altitude. Its radar cross-section was kept low by its sleek and unique form. The SR-71 had a great range that made it hard for enemy radar systems to find and follow. It could also refuel while in the air, which let it cover long distances in a single operation. The Blackbird is still a famous plane that will always be known for having unmatched abilities. It was the fastest and highest plane ever made, and it was very important for getting information during a very important time in history. People who are interested in airplanes and people in general are still fascinated by it decades after it stopped running. Thanks for seeing. Click on the link that shows up on your screen to watch one of our other videos. Enjoy your stay here. See you then.